today on this lovely, beautiful episode of Cryptic Cuts. We are giving you our first movie review. Just one movie, one episode, everything we have to say about it.
Just a precursor, just an alert to all those that don't like spoilers. We're gonna be talking about this movie in pretty full detail because, we got a lot that we would like to say about it. You've seen the title.
That's right.
You don't want to be spoiled, then I would turn this off and find something else to do, and maybe come back for episode 4 or 5 where we're talking about something that's not spoiling something for you. We spoiling today.
We're going to be talking about something as in-depth as we remember because it is in theaters, and that is Sinners.
Sinners.
Round of applause for Sinners. Honestly, I want to give Sinners a round of applause. Fantastic everything in terms of visuals of the movie. I absolutely loved what I was looking at. My eyes were eating the entire time. There was never a moment in which I was not visually stimulated. Now, I'm gonna be very clear with those words, visually stimulated. That being said, I'm gonna get into that deeper later on. I wanna say that actors, crew, creatives, cinematographers, set design, wardrobe, makeup, post, editing, everything.
Everybody ate.
Did really well. Did really, really well. And I know that's not even like, I'm not the arbiter. My opinion, this doesn't mean anything, but that's just my own personal opinion. I really enjoyed the visuals. Now, that's where I'm gonna leave my initial take on the movie. What did you think?
To piggyback off of that a little bit, I feel the same way. I think the acting was phenomenal. They ate down, it was crazy. I was so invested in how much depth everybody brought to the characters. And I do mean everybody that had some screen time. Ate down. Cinematography, crushed it. The visual, beautiful. Costume, wardrobe, it was very much that aspect. We kind of agree with that. What really we weren't feeling, there's a couple things we weren't feeling. I'll let you start. And I don't mean it's like, I'll let you start.
Well, I feel like though we kind of agree on what we were not feeling. And my take on Sinners, I feel like was pretty much your take on Sinners. I mean, we've talked extensively about this.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things now that we're gonna collect what we've discussed and now present it to our community. And the things that we saw outside of the things that I said that I liked, if I could hire that crew to make anything, I would hire that crew to make anything. Which leads me to the question in my mind, what went wrong for me? And that's where I want to start this off. Where did it go wrong for me? And where it went wrong for me, and I think where it went wrong for you, was with our favorite, one of our favorite mythical beings, kind of the crown jewel to our monster, cryptozoological fixation, and that would be the vampires,
bro. Like
vampires. And I know it sounds so silly to think that just one thing could just disrupt this whole movie, but it really did, because contextually, I did not think that the vampire arc smashed well together with the entire arc of Smoke and Stack and their journey, basically ripping off huge kingpins in Chicago, trying to start their own juke joint in the South, and then basically just like running across like wrong place, wrong time. 3 vampires who wanted friendship. And I know somebody's gonna rip me up for this. This whole thing, we're just gonna get ripped up for this, right?
That's fine.
I think that we've come to the consensus that we're just gonna get ripped up for this. But for me, like I said, the vampire arc and the Smoke and Stack arc just did not blend well. I would have liked to see either or developed way more, or maybe without the other completely. I don't feel like the vampire arc helped the Smoke and Stack arc, and I don't feel like the Smoke and Stack arc helped the vampire arc. And trust me, I understand where the crossover lied. I understand the parallels. I understand where they were trying to talk about oppression. I understand where they were trying to talk about solidarity. I understand the power dynamic that they were talking about within the relationship between Smokestack, Jim Crow's South, the vampires, and everything in between. I completely understand this. But what I do not understand was the way that they developed the vampires, because as people who love vampires and love all the vampire movies and all the different kinds of vampires, and you're, one of the biggest Anne Rice fans.
That's my shit, bro.
Ever. So we're talking a deep knowledge of this mythical creature. And what I personally did not like is what I love most about vampires. And what I love most about vampires is their singular nature, their singular being, which is they just thirst. All they do is thirst. And everything they do, no matter how complex, manipulative, beautiful, scary, destructive, controlling, possessive, anything that they do do, it is for one thing and one thing only, and that is to suck blood. It is not for friendship, it is not for solidarity, it is not for camaraderie, it is not even for power other than the power to be able to control blood supply.
Right.
And they just did not touch upon really any of that. And what they did touch upon was the parallels between the vampire community being ostracized, being displaced, all these things, and Smoke and Stack and the African American community in Jim Crow South. So I understand that. But what I don't understand is I wish that they would have broken a little bit of the character of the vampire, whereas the vampires were so eloquent and beautiful in a way, and they were sing-songy, and they brought camaraderie, and they came in and they tried to really actually parlay with everybody who was in the juke joint. They never had that moment where they cracked and they just showed their vicious nature, which I feel like would have been very powerful for the movie for them to show that. Like as they were trying to have one of their songs or maybe one of their plans was foiled. They just had this cracking character where all of the sudden you got to see their disgusting singular nature, which is to just thirst for blood. And that's what I completely missed from that movie. And in that regard, I didn't think that the vampires strengthened the storyline, which broke it apart for me, making the movie not my favorite.
That's a very good overview. I mean, it's a very good observation. I feel a lot of the same ways. I mean, to kind of piggyback a little bit, it was a movie and then there were vampires. Mm-hmm. And I understand a movie can only have so much context to include what it needs to for the subjects at all, for what's going on with Smoke and Stack, everybody else in between, the relationship. So, I mean, they built a world, but everything seems so separate that when it kind of came together, I was like, this ain't really coming together as if I was looking at, something synergetically really meshing together. It didn't feel like that for me. And as far as, vampire lore, we're really talking about the lore goes, I like the depth of vampire lore. I'm gonna just say this because, like I said, people are gonna be pissed off at this anyway, so I don't care.
Absolutely.
A garlic steak through the heart, sunlight vampire, there are so many different ways that it could have been done that weren't just as cliche as that. There could have been more depth to the idea. I mean, and we could go on for days, we don't have time for that, but that's just what really bothered me from a person to where I hear vampire, I'm on it. I dress in vampire garb on my daily sometimes just because you know why? I feel like that. So I understand this creature so well, and I just didn't think it was done justice. And it's not that it wasn't done justice completely. They had an idea going, but them coming together just wasn't really, it just was not it for me. I didn't dig it. That was the main aspect of why I wasn't really feeling it, was that for me.
I want to once again say that this movie has not really been viewed all too much yet. I mean, it's still very new. And I know that there's these people that go on the internet and they do these crazy deep dives and they pick apart every little nuance of the movie, and I'm sure that they're gonna find connections that we haven't even thought about.
True.
Frankly, because I haven't watched the movie 4,000 times, I've watched it once in theater, but my initial take on it is exactly what you were talking about, Craig, which is the fact that I didn't understand how those two worlds crossed, other than, and now this is where I want the community to correct me if I'm wrong, and anybody else, but it was the music, right? The music was the meet cute between the vampire world and Smoke and Stack's world, right?
Yeah.
Even though I know Smoke and Stack weren't the main characters, he wasn't the main character, right? The Preacher Boy was.
Technically, as far as, I mean, he was the essence of the,
right.
the essence of
but
the
I'm
movie,
talking
so.
about where, come on now, MichaelBJordan. He's the star.
Yeah.
So we're all fixated off Smoke and Stack's character for the most part, right? And that interpretation for me was them talking about the music. So we know, him saying, his daddy saying, oh, you keep playing that instrument, you're gonna be inviting the devil, or the devil's gonna follow you home one day, and all these things. And then going to the juke joint and that all happening, but it was in terms of the music that was the meet cute between the vampire world and all of their world. But let me ask you, I just didn't think that was a strong meeting point.
Well,
I personally just didn't feel that.
Well, the idea that they played into with certain people being able to use music to cross barriers over space, time, and existence, all of that, which I feel like if you know anything about occultism and any of the mysticism in that aspect, if you are opening up a gate and you're doing something and things around will hear and feel. I know that's what they were getting at. That's why the vampires are like, we're here, we're around now because we heard you jamming, and you have the ability, this singular person for some reason has the ability to cross over and break that little barrier, and we felt that, we sensed that. Mm-hmm. Not once did they get into the reason why the vampires wanted to get in there and get that. For what? this is such an important pivotal point of why they're attracted to that. Well, then what? You know, and we
Well,
didn't really...
they did touch on it, but I just didn't think it was strong enough because what they kept pressing on the preacher's son being that generational phenomenon who could bring people together with the sound of music and had the ability to calm the community and all of that. So essentially, this individual is, you know, a shaman or a soothsayer, has that ability to play an instrument, bring people together. So then clearly the vampires were trying to get a hold of him because they felt like with his musical ability under their control, they would be able to amass more power and control more vampires. But like I said, why? Just in general, why? Why?
And some people.
What was the point?
Right. And some people could argue on that. Some people could easily be like, well, it just was happening just because. And I was like, now that could be said to be true. It could be happening just because, but they gave way too much power and context to the beginning of that movie and the overall feel of it to where things weren't allowed to just be because they are.
Right. And what I got from that magic, right? So they keep bringing in magic, the tone of magic, and in multiple different ways. So you have the cultural magic of Africa and how it had been brought over to the States. So you have root work, you have all the other associated magics that go along with that. And then also you have the Christian faith that's clearly was pervasive in the movie. And then on top of that, you almost have this, almost like a new wave philosophy of, you know, the soothsayer or the musician who has the ability to heal and call the community, bring people together, and all sorts of things.
Right.
And then you have kind of the modern man, right? You have Smoke and Stack, who are just not spiritual, have been to war, had seen all these things.
Clearly said, like power is where we're at.
They only believe in power. They don't believe in anything they can't really see or touch.
Right.
So you have all the different angles, right? But it was the way that they set it up. Essentially, for me, almost made it seem like the head vampire, if he had gotten a hold of the preacher's son, he would like almost like strum 2 chords and then everybody would be a vampire or like want to come under their spell or whatever. It's like a massive glamour, right? That's how it made it seem for me personally. But in essence, this is why I thought that there were giant holes, because vampires are so strong. Why would you need this individual's guitar playing when you're strong enough at this time to go and basically just turn a whole town at will?
Quick too. You see how fast they turn?
In a night. I mean, this is where if we're talking about garlic, steaks, you know, can't come inside, classic vampire lore. And then we look at other movies that had classic vampire lore. You know, From Dusk Till Dawn. You have 30 Days a Night.
Yeah. They kind of play along a lot of
all of these movies. I mean, even Abe Lincoln, Vampire Slayer. All these movies, classic vampire lore. But those movies emphasize the dynamic that vampires will go for the path of least resistance to get what they want. They're cunning enough, they're vicious enough, they're all these things enough. So they're not gonna go try to waste all their time and energy trying to acquire one kid when they could literally go turn the entire town or subsequent towns in the course of maybe a couple weeks. They would not be so short-sighted and play these games with these individuals. And that's where I thought that it was a little bit odd, that they would have been after the blood, they would have realized maybe we can't get in here, maybe this isn't the case, and they would have just moved on and started to turn everybody around and maybe come back the next night and they've already got the army. It just, for me, it didn't make sense. Like maybe I did want to see like the holdout of the juke joint be a couple days, you know, or just a variation that would have increased the intensity of the relationship, of the importance of why the vampires needed to get in the juke joint beyond the kids' musical talents. It was not a strong enough drive for me. It was almost like that head vampire was addicted to trying to turn this kid, where no head vampire being that strong ever would care.
There were a lot of very human emotions in play with the vampires that pops up sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like it was trying to be a lot of things at once. There was so much. At the beginning of the movie, watching it, I feel like I was so invested in Smoke and Stack's story that when the vampires came in, I kind of, a piece of me was like, well, can we go back to the smoking? What's up?
What do you mean, what's up?
What's going on? Everything all right? You looking a little nervous.
You're looking a little hungry.
I'm a little thirsty.
Well, I just had a garlic pizza.
You know, I don't like pizza anyway, so.
Yeah, well.
As I was saying.
Stop looking at me like that.
I think that, you know, there were a lot of things going on. I wanted the smoke and stack story to kind of just keep going. It could have just been that.
Yeah.
And then it was vampires. And knowing us, we're like, cool, here it comes. Let's see what kind of vampire they're about to deliver to us. And it was not it, you know? As much as I could keep diving on it, it wasn't it for us, yo. That's okay for people not to be feeling something. It's all right. It's cool. It's fine.
So, here we are. We are at the bitter end, and it has been a very, very, very long ride. We know this, but we had a lot to say about this movie because we felt like it deserved it. Now, even though we had our opinions on it, once again, this is a movie. This is art. You know, it's open to interpretation. It's open to different perspectives. And here at Cryptic Cuts, we have our opinions, but we're not here to belittle anybody's art, put anybody down, make anybody feel bad about what they've done, because we know what it's like to try to make any sort of movie, let alone a feature, and it is no small feat. So hats off to everybody who worked on the movie, had a part to play in the movie from top to bottom. We know you put your heart and soul into it, and it was a Herculean task to get done. So hats off to you. No shade whatsoever. You know, right. This is just based on storyline and our opinion on the movie that we saw. And not all of them are going to be great, and not all of our opinions are going to be the same as everybody else's. But that being said, we want to hear your opinion. So please let us know what you think of the movie. Let us know if we missed anything. Let us know if you agree, disagree. We would love to hear from you.
Give us a holler. And once again, I just want to say one more time, art is subjective, and we understand that completely. And this was just our personal take on it. And, you know, I think people should speak about how they feel about art in general, because you know what? If we don't keep talking about it, it'll be gone.
Absolutely, it will. So that being said, that's another episode. Please give us a like, subscribe, and follow. Find us on Cryptic Cuts TV on all platforms, and we will see you on the next episode.
Goodbye.